Good day. Welcome to X Review and Geopolitical Deep Dive with Ebima Mungo. I've said many times, this is the only show in the internet that takes news from the X platform and gives deep dives into their geopolitical implication. Elon Musk purchased Twitter in 2022, and since then it has become the largest platform for news in 150 countries, and it is a very big source of news for anybody who wants to talk about geopolitics and how it affects the world. So let us start today's show, and where we will be starting? We will be starting in, obviously, it's Ukraine. Ukraine had a very massive attack by the Russians. Their power infrastructure was massively attacked. And the first story we have here from Julian Mendel is that obviously she's a supporter of the Ukraine, and she put out a video to show how light on after 18 hours of power outage. Ukraine energy workers repair energy infrastructure around the clock. Yes, there was a massive attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure 2 days ago. In fact, for the past 2 days running, the energy infrastructure of Ukraine has been really, really battered, and there was blackouts even in some parts of Kiev, Odessa, in many parts of Ukraine. They suffered severe blackouts. Cities like Poltava, cities like Kharkiv were in darkness. Even some parts of Odessa were in darkness. The barrage was big, and Centrigo and Ukrainian Go Energy, all the energy companies had to stop producing energy for Ukraine. Now light is back. She's happy about it. Yes, this attack by the Russians on Ukrainian energy infrastructure is a very brutal one. It's been going on for a while now, and they are taking out all the infrastructure, Ukrainian energy infrastructure, all across Ukraine this time. The Russians are showing a capacity that is quite phenomenal to be able to, and extensive. In the last attack, they used 450 Geran-2 drones, and they also used a lot of Kinjal missiles, hypersonic missiles. Now, some places are getting their light back. Elon Musk, the owner of Twitter X, is weighing in on what's going on in the government because of shutdown. He said the reason government programs are so inefficient is that unlike in the commercial company, the feedback loop for improvement is broken because they have a mandated monopoly and can't go out of business if customers are unhappy. No matter how bad the service is, your DMV, which is Department of Motor Vehicles. Sorry to pick on DMVs. You still have to use your DMV because it's a monopoly. Yeah. So the DMV here is the Department of Motor Vehicles. It's one everybody goes to because if they have to have license, and yeah, every person on this watching this show will understand that government services is usually very not the same thing as the service you get when you go to private institutions. There are monopolies, and that's what he's saying. And now we have a situation where there's a shutdown in America because of the Congress can't come to an agreement. It's affecting a lot of services. Air traffic controllers are affected. The military is affected. It's really causing a lot of problems to America. This is a great triumph for the Russians. India signs with Russia Superjet to make first passenger planes without Western parts since the last century. This is a great triumph for both India and Russia. Russia has capacity full now. The companies in Russia are all producing for the military industrial complex. They are producing military planes, Su-34s, Su-35s, Su-57s, and they are really busy. The Superjet is the first plane by the Russians is the first plane anywhere in the world to have been completely devoid of Western parts. The engines, the landing gear, the fuselage, every single part of it is now sourced from Russian parts. And this was the last test to see how the engine can inject water. The engine is a PD-8 engine. It is a Russian-produced engine for the commercial jet industry, and it is a very powerful engine. And now the Superjet 100 and the MC-21s are going to be produced. They're the only planes in the world that is produced by one particular country. It shows you the depth of Russian technology and know-how. Over the last few weeks, I have noticed Russian FPV drones equipped with a shocking stick when taking down Ukrainian recon drones. Before, the Russian FPV would fly simply into a recon drone and explode. But now the FPV zap the other drones out. How does this even work? Innovation is the greatest thing that has come out of this war, and drone technology is the big element of the Ukraine-Russia war. Drones FPV drones, reconnaissance drones, lightweight drones like the reconnaissance. We know of the Guerrera drones of the Russians, and the Russians now have developed drones, the drones that will now take out Ukrainian reconnaissance drones. And rather than just bump into them, now they have a shocking stick, as this video is showing, that destroys the drones. That way they are able to reuse their own drone. They offset the engines and the fans and of the Ukrainian drones and take them out of the sky. The Ukrainians also have their variants of drones that take out Russian reconnaissance drones out of the sky. Both countries are innovating in that drone space. Very much so. They are innovating. This war has really unleashed a lot of innovation in the drone space, and they are proven and they are practical because they are being used in the war. Ukrainian forces struck targets in Russia, Crimea overnight. Missiles hit Voronezh thermal plant 180 miles from the border, with drones struck the substation near Koronevo, 27 kilometers away, and ammunition depot near Gadelskoye in Crimea. The Kazanowski plant in Kazan was also reportedly hit. Many people don't say this, but the Ukrainians are inflicting a lot of damage on the Russians as well. It may be that the Russians are more powerful and more potent in their own attack on the Ukrainians, but the Ukrainians are also inflicting a lot of damage. This year is a power plant, and it's undeniable. The other day, I saw a video of an S-400 unit being taken out. The Ukrainians are really pounding the Russians too, and they're pounding their refineries, their energy infrastructure. They are also attacking. The thing here now is, how do they attack Crimea? It is thought that they have a lot of agents within Crimea. They have a lot of agents within Crimea, and because of that, they use some of these agents. They have partisan groups within Crimea that help in sending down these drones. They also have repeater drones. There are new technologies in these drones we keep talking about, and they do harm too to the Russians. Yeah, we are seeing that they attacked a power plant, and that power plant, they're proving it. Let's go to the next story. Zelensky assigned new special decisions on sanctions. Zelensky is sanctioning Russia. Today's sanctions decision include individuals who work with Putin's government structure and involved in the looting and temporary occupation of territories of Ukraine. In particular, one of these wallets, a functionary of Russian military intelligence, and one of his collaborators. We don't know how Ukraine is going to enforce it, but Ukraine has a lot of sanctions against the Russians. The other day, they sanctioned the Russian ability to sell their oil in the Arctic. Zelensky is really making sure that the pain. What he does is he also takes these sanctions that the Ukrainians approve, and then they sends it to the EU. The EU rubber stamps it, and it becomes an EU-wide sanction. So there's teeth to these sanctions. It's disruptive to the Russians. Where if the Russian official being targeted used to be able to travel, they will not be able to travel anymore. We're talking about innovations on the part of the Russians. We saw how their super jet and their MC-21s are doing very well as commercial aviation, but what we know them for also is military aviation. And the Russians put out a video that shows capability of the Su-57. The Su-57 is a variant that is similar to the F-22 and F-35s. but not much is known of it. It was not so much visible before the war, but after the war now, it has become one of the weapon systems of choice because it's still practically in development to a large extent. Not much is known about it, but the Russians put out a video recently that showed the capability of this particular warplane. It is phenomenal. Yes, one of the great things that the Russians have been doing recently is that showing us so many of their weapon systems. They're showing us the Borisvesnik, they showed us the Poseidon, both nuclear engined and nuclear powered weapon systems. But with the F-57, yeah, not much is known. They went to an air show in China recently with a prototype copy of it, but now they are beginning to show the world. More of it has also been delivered by Rostec, but not much is known of this weapon system. It is a very, very advanced system, and the Russians are showing us the capabilities they have. This is why they are very much in the mix. They have found their mojo, they have found their manufacturing prowess, they have found their innovation prowess. This war has really, really been a benefit to the Ukrainian military-industrial complex. Let's move on to the next one now. Ukraine too is doing their own bit. After all, what you can do, I can do better. They all come off the same Soviet stock. They all have the same Soviet background in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And this year shows that they too can do something about what's going on here now. Ukraine has created a 3,000-kilometer range Flamingo cruise missile, twice as powerful as the American Tomahawk. The British publication, The Independent, writes that the Ukrainian engineers are creating a new generation of weapons combining old technologies with IT. One example is the FP5 Flamingo cruise missile, which has already been used to strike deep in Russia's rear. It has a range of 3,000 kilometers, a speed of about 900 kilometers, and a warhead of more than 1 ton. That's a very vast and big warhead. If it has been used, we really don't know. But really, what we know is that there's a SASPAM program that was being done in conjunction with the Germans. It was supposed to be a variant of the Taurus. It was destroyed. The Ukrainian military actually recently just admitted that most of their missile production capacity has been destroyed by the Russians in the latest wave of attacks that have been going on across Russia, across Ukraine, using drones and Kinjal missiles. But this particular one is being developed, and it is expected that they will be developed to the extent that it can do harm to the Russians. But what we know is that this is an old technology. It is old Soviet technology. Like they say, they are trying to put new IT systems in it. That is where the British and the Germans come in, and they are the ones who are helping them to develop this weapon system. But definitely, if it is being built within Ukraine, it will be attacked. It will be the place it is being manufactured will be found out, attacked, and destroyed. On the left bank of the Oskol River, the Ukrainian armed forces have major logistic problems from the Kupiansk to Liman direction. These problems are not only being loudly discussed right now, but soon there will be complaints. Ukraine militant Stanislav Buniatov has said. To confirm these words, Izanka published a footage of the destruction by the drones and tornado of a heavy mechanized bridge of the Ukrainian armed forces across the Oskol River. The Russians are really, really pounding the bridges and the infrastructure, the supply chains, the train stations, all that can help the inferring troops and materials to the battlefield. Because the it has struck. We can see that this war is one where we see visuals. This is not a secret war anymore. They use this. These visuals have become so important to the mapping channels because they use it to geolocate and know who is being attacked and who is attacking. And they use this to know the movement of the troops. And it's a very important tool for calibrated. It's important for AMK. It's important for Suriak, and it's important for the deep state. It's a very visual war. We see this war in life, sometimes even when the attack is ongoing. U.S. halts arms delivery to NATO allies for Ukraine amid government shutdown. This is really serious news. This is breaking news, I must say. I didn't see this anywhere. According to Axios, citing State Department sources, the shutdown, according to Axios, the citing State Department sources, the shutdown has frozen arms shipment intended for Ukraine through NATO partners. The pause affects deliveries of key systems, including AMRAAM missiles, Aegis combat systems, and HIMARS. The Americans have stopped giving arms to the Ukrainians. That is a certainty. They are running down on their last budgetary allocation to the Ukrainians. But they created a POL system, prioritized something for the Ukrainian sourcing of weapons for the Ukrainians by the Europeans. It's like a pot where everybody contributes to buy arms from the Americans. But if this is true, it means that Ukraine's problems are a lot much worse. This is November 9th, 6:45 a.m. And whoops, weapons allies stalled by government shutdown. This is really serious, and this will impact weapon sales to NATO allies stalled by government shutdown. This is a really serious one. Axios has been one reporting. Axios has insight into a lot of the government. They have contacts within the Trump administration. They tell a lot, and they have an interest, as most Western media organizations have, in the goings-on in the Ukraine war. And they do have a lot of information. Most times we don't know where their leaning is because their stories tend to put the narrative of where they lean to. NATO's $1 million problem, shooting down a $20,000 drone. This is, in fact, the challenge of many of the countries. On paper, NATO air defense looks bulletproof. Patriot missile, F-35 radar that can spot a seagull over Siberia. But Russians just exposed the gap. Alliance can't efficiently kill cheap drones. These aren't high-tech stealth. They're not high-tech stealth threats. They are flying lawnmowers with explosive. Their cost is just $20,000 each. The missile Poland used to take down was over $1 million. Congratulations, you just lost the world's most expensive trade. Yes, the Russians have come up with very cheap. The adoption of the Shahid drone. These are all huge weapon systems, very costly. American weaponry is very costly. And when they go after Shahid drones that are just $20,000 to make, they use interceptor missiles that are $3 million for the Patriot missiles. This Patriot missile here is an interceptor missile that is almost $3 million to produce, and they are very costly. And what you're trying to do is bring down a drone that is just $20,000. And this is why the Russians went to the Iranians to go and meet them for their Shahid drones. They took the blueprint, took the technology, and now they are veritable masters of that particular weapon system. The Shahid drone is just, or the Garantu drones are just very cheap. And maybe we should listen in a little bit to this video and hear what the commentator is saying.
Tracked, they mostly can, it's often uneconomical to actually intercept them. The drones that Russia sent into Poland, for instance, are thought to cost perhaps $20,000. The air-to-air missiles that Poland used to shoot some of them down can cost more than $1 million. NATO has limited stocks of those in the first place. NATO allies are investing in short-range anti-drone defences. The problem is that few of them are actually scaling this up. Start with laser weapons. America, Israel and Russia have all experimented with these to take down drones. Britain's Dragonfire laser
This is beyond experimentation. The threat is clear and present. The Ukrainian and the Russian drones are clear and present problems. The Shahid drones and the Guarantee drones and the Guarantee variants are all realities that NATO need to find it a challenge to, and they are not able to do that yet now because all the weapon systems they have was geared towards bringing down missiles, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles, not drones, not cheap drones. This Ukraine war has changed warfare, changed the whole calculus of warfare, and even changed, as we see now, the economics of warfare. Let's go to this other one now. Very important news. Russians take a 2-minute overcraft ride to Heihe, China for weekend due to visa-free access. Heihe has entered the tourist season. So this is what this is what a lot of people forget, that Russia and China are neighbors. They have an extensive border and they've been close for several centuries. And relationship between them, though fractures, because for a long time, the Russians have been looking west, but now they are looking east. The Chinese did something that took Putin by surprise. During the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in September 3rd, um, President Xi Jinping announced that there will be visa-free entry to Russian tourists to visit China. And those border communities are taking advantage of it. Here we see a 2-minute overcraft drive. And it is these are the images you probably will not see in Western media. They won't show this to you, that these countries have had a good need for a good relationship. After 300 years of trying to look west, they are finally looking east. And now they are strengthening their ties. That visa-free program of the Chinese is now extended to 57 countries, pardon me. Most of them are in Europe, and a lot are taking advantage of it, and they're using that as a means of understanding and knowing China better. Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara plays basketball with US officials. What won't we see? CENTCOM Command Admin Brad Cooper. This is really interesting. This is Shara here, former Jaloni, now al-Shara. He was a former militant of Al-Qaeda, and now he's been this obviously is sports diplomacy. He's now the president of Syria. He's coming to America to meet with President Trump. He has gone to Russia to meet with President Putin. He is caught in between geopolitics. He had just finally succeeded in removing Assad, and then he has come to see that, yes, there's politics and there's geopolitics. His country, particularly Syria, is a beehive. If now understands why Assad had to fight several years to stave off the Americans, stave off the Israelis, and also ultimately go and call the Russians to be amongst them. This is some form of diplomacy. This shows the change and the reality that we now see. The other day, he was actually with Petraeus, and they had a meeting when Petraeus, when he came to the United Nations, he met with former CIA director Petraeus. He is now being courted very extensively by the Americans. What do we have here? Jelen Röpke, very pro-Ukraine German. He's a journalist of Bild. Yeah. He has 185 followers. He's a strong supporter of the Ukrainian cause. He said, at the start of the fifth war winter, Russia has once again intensified its scorched-earth strategy in the neighboring country. Within the past 24 hours, nearly all Ukrainian power plants and substations have been deliberately bombed, with the result that currently a large portion of the population is without electricity. Our strategy to strengthen Ukraine air defense has failed. The few Patriots and Iris-T with far few missiles are no match for the sheer superiority of cruise missiles, kamikaze drones, and ballistic missiles. That's the reality of this war. In parallel, Russian army is systematically attacking gas stations and destroying them to cripple Ukraine with military and civilian wise. With what many apparently fail to grasp, if we do not immediately enable Ukraine to respond to these attacks and strike Russia critical infrastructure in equal measure, this war will soon be decided in Putin's favor. Then we will have to fight against Russia's army in at most 5 years, naturally, also without electricity and heating. While here at home, especially in Bavaria, some politicians dream of voluntary or forced return of Ukrainian refugees. A new humanitarian catastrophe is brewing in Ukraine. Naturally, people have the right and, in essence, no other choice to seek refuge with us if we fail. They have led Ukraine into a war that they can't win, and Ukraine is suffering the consequences of it. This is darkness over which of one of the cities. I think this may be Kharkiv. Julian Repka is one of the strong advocates of more sources to Ukraine. But what the Western politicians are caught in a catch-22 situation. There's a threshold of support you can give to Ukraine that is just a little bit there that the Russians will tolerate. You give them too much, the Russians will move and escalate. They start using Oreshnik and possibly tactical weapons, nuclear weapons. So it's a big balancing act. It's the biggest headache for the Western politicians. They can never do enough to support Ukraine, because if they over support Ukraine, they push the Russians into escalating to weapon systems that we know they have, that they have started not using. Minograd, dark is the night, a dispatch from the ruins. This is another long one about the fate that has happened to Minograd. Minograd is the last city now that the Russians are about to take. Pokrovsk has practically fallen, and all these Ukrainian soldiers have been headed into Minograd. And you can see these are very strongly fortified cities. The buildings we see here now are Soviet-style buildings, strong concrete buildings, and very hard to capture. But the Russians have peppered them with fire bombs over the long time. This is the last stand of the Ukrainians in Minograd, and the Russians have told them to surrender or else they'll all be destroyed. This is what Minograd looks like now. Just in the next few weeks, we really don't know what the Russians will do. It's estimated that there are 5,000 soldiers within this pocket. There may be more or there may be less. This is the last view of Minograd before it transits into Russian hands. More detailed info from the Times. Norway is discussing a proposal to unlock European war loan of more than 100 billion to Ukraine by securing the debt against its 1.7 trillion national sovereign wealth fund. The EU, this is a big change. In fact, it is unprecedented. The EU will struggle to raise the loan without substantial collateral because of the risk that Ukraine might never be in a position to repay the bonds. Negotiators are expected to try to win round the Belgians at the meeting on Friday. However, Oslo may yet come into the rescue. The political establishment in Norway has been stung by suggestions from Denmark and other European nations, partners, that the country, which belongs to NATO but not the EU, has been profiting from the Russian invasion of the Ukraine by selling large volumes of oil and gas to its allies while giving back comparatively little. This is finally, the truth has finally come out. The truth has finally dropped. Norway, led then by former Prime Minister, or let me say NATO, former Norwegian Prime Minister, Jan Stoltenberg, has profited immensely from this war. As they shut out access to Russian gas and Russian oil, it was Norway that stepped up to provide it. They have been making so much money, and being that they are not in the EU, but they're in NATO, NATO has not really spent so much. It's mainly the European countries and individual countries. Norway has been the beneficiary of this war and have made a lot of money. This suggestion by Norway is a very novel one. It is one that has changed the conversation, because people like Ursula von der Leyen and Kaja Kallas and other politicians within the EU establishment are so focused. They are just focused on getting their hands on the Russian frozen asset. This changes the conversation, and this is a big lifeline for the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians already are hoping that the Norwegians will give them gas. That will be a very problematic since how that gas will be sent to Norway, I mean, through Norway to Ukraine is also being discussed. But supporting them, even if not the whole complete 100 billion, even if it is 50 billion, it's still a change in the conversation as regards to funding the budgetary shortfalls for Ukraine. Let's end with this few stories here now regarding this. The Russian armed forces have liberated Robotne in the Zaporizhia region, the Russian Defense Ministry has reported. Drones again. This is what we keep getting every day. The story is just the same. It is just one community after the other, another community. This is from TASS. TASS is the news agency of Russia, and it's showing how the drone attacks on the community that has just been liberated and how they were peppered and bombed by bombs and drones and firebomb to the point where the Ukrainians had to just flee and leave it behind. The Russians have stepped up. They're taking territory in Sumy, Volchansk. They're taking territory in Kharkiv. They're close to taking Kupiansk, Minograd. They're taking. It's just unrelenting. The Ukraine is really, really at the back foot. They're losing this war. If not that, they have already lost. We have already seen this. This is also the one we saw earlier regarding the Sukhoi 57 and another drone story. Um, well, this is where I end my video for today. If you have any views regarding the opinions I just expressed, please put them in the comment section. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. Being that it's a new channel, it will have no subscribers. I'll urge you to be among the first subscribers to this channel. Let us grow it. It is just an addition and a variant and an extension of a Bima Mungo's perspective to global affairs. Until my next video, you have a good day.